G'day and thanks again to Neil Carstairs from Mortgage Corp for this highlights package. Second day of the Storm Bass Australian Open at Glenbawn Dam. Nice early dawn start and a bit of rain coming through this morning. Slightly different weather conditions, but I tell you what, it didn't stop the bass biting. I started off by picking up a Daiwa double clutch jerkbait, mainly because there was raindrops hitting the water. I'd probably normally use a surface lure, but I went to work and got a limit in ridiculous time.
First cast on the jerkbait.
I've had plenty of questions about the small landing net style net, the kayak style one. Basically, Superstition did well at Southwest Rocks. Stick with a good thing, and it makes the fish look bigger. If you haven't jerkbaited for Australian bass, it's a pretty easy formula. You want cool water, usually under 20 degrees, and you want clear water because it's a real visual thing. Wind that lure down to the depth, twitch it, and pause it. And the fish, just like that, will jump on.
All peas in a pod, these fish.
I'm 50-50 whether I use fluorocarbon straight through or braid and leader for jerkbaiting for bass, but it sort of doesn't really matter because I use a 6'6" ultra soft old style Daiwa heartland rod, and that cushions the blow and keeps those real small trebles in the fish's mouth. So I caught 3 fish off the first little point that I fished. It was just a simple matter of flicking that boat around and fishing the point that was behind me to complete the limit.
So pretty good morning bite here at Glenbawn. That's my 4th fish.
And there you go, the time code is making a liar of me. I told people at the weigh-in I caught a limit in 12 minutes. It was really 14.
That fish grabbed it and just ran out. This is number 5. Probably 10 minutes of fishing.
And since all of those fish were basically the same size, around that 800 to 900 gram mark, it was time to go exploring, so I started then covering some ground. Trouble was, I was catching fish that were the same size as the fish that I'd already got in the live well, and if you haven't upgraded a bass, it's no picnic. So I did what I did the day before to catch my bigger fish, and that's pick up the jig and start working the shallower water, looking especially for laydowns on points. Using my standard outfit for jigging, that's the 12 pound straight through on a 7 foot and a bit rod.
I think you've got to help.
Probably the best move I made on day 2 was to head back to the main basin. You can see how calm it is here, and that water visibility was 12 to 15 feet. Now, the day before there'd been wind blowing onto this bank and it was all sort of muddied up and it didn't cop much pressure. So I fished it on day 2, had the whole thing to myself, and the bigger fish started biting.
I ate it a long time before I knew he ate it.
Now, usually when you're throwing a jig, you get the bass hooked in the mouth and hooked pretty well, so it's not uncommon to boat flip in a lot of these bigger fish. Unfortunately, when you get an even bigger fish on, you sometimes panic and don't boat flip it when you probably should.
Oh. Fell off.
But for me, by far the coolest thing that happened all weekend was the ability to sit there in 5 to 12 foot of water and actually watch the bass eat your jig. Now that is as cool as brim fishing.
It's a bass.
Now, if you've fished Glenbawn, you know exactly where this spot is. It's an old road which runs down into the water, and there's a great road edging with lots of drop-offs and boulders, etc., and laydowns hanging down off it, and I could see the fish eating the jig there. It was great.
There he is. I watched him eat that in the snag. That was awesome. Another upgrader. Maybe not. He's skinny little thing. Heaps of bass along this wall.
Now, the brighter the sun got and the calmer the wind got, the more the bass pulled into structure, and you can see how shallow this laydown is that the bass followed the jig down and ate it from. The fishing was getting better and better as the day went on. And as only a relatively newcomer to the jigs, my one piece of advice would be you can't really fish these things too slow. Fish them slow, let the fish eat them.
Right. Where he is. It's around something. It's a bigger fish. It's a bigger fish. He's probably beautiful. That's my biggest fish of the tournament, right there, out of a shallow snag on the jig. The jig in his mouth. That's an upgrade.
And if you think it's all serious work, well, we're having a bit of banter here with Adrian Melcher on the other side, and we're both getting bites. Ask any competitor and they'll tell you that the Australian Bass Open, sponsored by Storm, is one of the most fun events you'll fish.
Yeah. I don't even weigh him either. I've got no idea what I've got. I upgrade a few times, then I downgrade a few times.
And I can definitely say that 2018 has been my year of catch a big fish late. And it happened again, catching a great fish on this real shallow laydown. That fish ate the bait in about 1.5 feet of water. Took me a while to get him out though.
He's never coming out.
And it's this sort of situation that I think straight through fluorocarbon is a real advantage. There are no knots, no matter how small the knots are, there to catch in any of the grain of the wood. And if that fish swims in, I reckon I'm a chance of swimming him back out again.
Out you get. Get out. Out you get. He was buried. It's another good fish. Right on a shallow laydown. Long and skinny, but another upgrade.
So do yourself a favour, if you're a keen bass fisherman, make sure you get to the Storm Bass Australian Open in 2019.